I want to welcome you to Truth and Wellness. I'm Gail McKenzie, I'm your host, and we're so glad that you have joined us today. I have with me a special guest, my friend Ken Wetmore. He's here to share how God has led in his life and took him from a journey. He was going kind of one direction and kind of led you into some youth ministry, didn't he? He works with kids, and he's going to tell us today about the great experiences that he's had all along the way and how God has led him to this place. So Ken, it's so good to have you here today.
Well, thanks for having me, Gail. I appreciate it.
Good to have you. Why don't we start telling our viewers here something about your background, where you came from, your family a little bit, so they get to know you just like I do.
All right, I'd love to.
Okay.
As you mentioned, my name is Ken Wetmore, and I originally grew up in Hendersonville, North Carolina, just down the road from Nashville. Really great childhood there. Went to elementary school and high school. After I graduated from high school, I went on to Southern Adventist University, where I double majored in theology and public relations.
Ah, two great majors, huh? That sounds good.
Yeah, you
Put
know,
those two together. Huh?
It is a little bit unusual, but I actually think it's a great combination, because I think that so much of pastoring has to do with the ability to connect with people
and communicate. And
communicate.
Yes.
So I think it's an excellent double major.
Yeah. Good.
So at that point I was thinking that when I first started college, I kind of had thought that I wanted to wind up being a pastor full-time. And as I kind of went through college, I kind of felt like maybe God was calling me in a different direction. And so by the time I got to my senior year, I decided I was going to drop my theology major down to a minor and actually major in public relations.
Okay.
And so when I graduated, I had this degree in public relations and a minor in theology, and I knew that what I wanted to do is I wanted to go and do communications work for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I knew that my wife and I both wanted to go do some sort of missionary work. And so we looked all over the world to see where we could find a place that needed a teacher and somebody to do public relations. And the one place in the world that we found was the island of Guam, of all places.
An island, okay. And where is Guam, just in case we don't all know our geography?
Well, I'll tell you what, Guam's getting a little bit of play in the news right now because of everything that's happening in North Korea.
That's right,
But Guam is in the Western Pacific.
Okay.
It's about a 3-hour flight from Japan.
Wow.
It's a wonderful place. The people are just absolutely fantastic there, and we really loved the 6 years that we spent there. We were supposed to be there for only 2 years, and we wound up on a 6-year tour instead. What wound up happening was we started off, I was working in communications for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I was doing their public relations, and I was also working at their radio station. I was doing a morning radio drive show for the Adventist radio station. We called it, the radio station was called Joy 92, and so we called it Joy in the Morning. And had a wonderful time doing that for about 2 years. And when I got done working for the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I was fortunate enough to be picked up by one of the local radio news stations there on Guam, and they picked me up to do news for them. And after working with them for a short time, the NBC affiliate on Guam called up and said, "Hey Ken, what about television news? We pay more than radio." And that sounded good. More money sounded really good.
All right, yes.
So I wound
all
up
of
doing
a sudden
television
you had
news.
Cameras then that you were looking into instead of just a microphone.
You got it.
Okay.
I never thought I was pretty enough for television, and I don't know, but
I don't think any of us think that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I wound up there.
So you were an anchor.
I was. Eventually worked my way up
Cool.
to being a 6 o'clock news anchor and covered military and politics for KUAM News.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great. And how many years did you do that then?
Did that for about 3.5 years.
3.5 years.
Yeah. Covered everybody from Donald Rumsfeld, who came to the island, to President Bush Sr., who came to visit the island for a while, and movie stars and actresses that came to visit the troops. I think probably one of my favorite things is I got to do a tailhook landing on a aircraft carrier and a catapult takeoff covering the military. So that was some good times.
That would be exciting. Yeah. So that was kind of an exciting life you were living, kind of on the edge, it seems like.
It was. It was very fast-paced. It was
Yes.
interesting.
Yes.
Met really interesting people in that job, and was really enjoying myself, and then it was the strangest thing. I was going right along, and all of a sudden God said,
yes,
we're ready for you to move. And I said, whoa, 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 I really like it
I'm
here.
liking it,
I'm
yeah,
liking it.
yeah, yeah.
But God said, you know, I'm ready for you to go back and do communications again for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And
Okay.
and I was a little taken back by that. I wasn't really prepared to go back in that direction, but my wife and I are really big believers that God has a plan for our lives.
Okay.
And that there is a way, a best way, kind of like if you have a GPS.
Okay, I like that. Where you're
If you
going
have a
with that.
GPS, there's
Yes.
you can get to from point A to point B in
Right.
multiple different ways, but there is a best way. There is a way
The
that will
straight
get you
yes.
the fastest, take you through the least undesirable neighborhoods,
Yes. Yeah.
that sort of thing. And so
Yes.
we felt God's call, both of us did.
Right.
And so we wound up
Right.
coming back, working for the Seventh-day Adventist Church, doing communications in the great state of Georgia.
Ah, Georgia.
And
okay.
got back, started doing it, loved the people I was working with. They were absolutely fantastic to work with, but I don't know, this may be hard for viewers to understand, but after doing television news, public relations is about as slow and as boring. The job just, I was bored to tears after.
So you were up here just doing all, and then all of a sudden,
yeah,
the
you're
brakes.
like, it's like going on the going from the express train to
Okay.
walking along the tracks.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it was,
Okay.
it really slowed things down, and I loved the people I was working with, but it was just a really, really tough. And I remember praying and telling the Lord, I said, you know, I was really enjoying what I was doing. I'm grateful that I'm in a good place to work, but I'm bored. And I felt the Lord. I thought, well, you know, maybe I'll work for a couple years, and then maybe this is God's way of transitioning me back into doing news in the mainland of the United States or something like
okay.
that. And it was
Becoming a Tom Brokaw or something.
yeah,
like
that was my dream actually. Yeah,
Right.
and so I thought, well, this is it, and I'll try to give the Seventh-day Adventist Church a fair number of years working, maybe 2 or 3 years, and then I'll go ahead and go back to television news if I can. And so anyway, so that's what was really crazy was after I'd been there for about a year, a friend of mine called up and said, Ken, my dad is in charge of hiring ministers out in Eastern Washington. He said, and we wanted to know if you were at all interested in being considered for this pastoral position.
Whoa, so
And
all of a sudden the theology that you had kind of put as a minor is now
You got
something that kind of comes up to the forefront, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, okay.
And I said to Eric, I said, Eric, I don't think your dad's going to be interested in me. Firstly, I've only got a minor in theology, and I just, I don't think I'm the right guy for you.
You'd never pastored, right?
No,
Okay.
never.
So you
never.
had no
I mean,
experience.
Well, let me go. I've never done it for a paycheck, but when I was on Guam anchoring the news, my friend Eric and I had actually done a church plant together. We'd planted this little church, and I was doing my news anchoring full time, and I kind of did all the preaching for that church, but it wasn't full-time pastoring by any stretch of the imagination. So I said, Eric, I don't know if you don't get that there's a difference between helping preach a sermon and pastoring a church. And he said, I think I understand the difference, Ken, and I'd just like it if you'd talk to my dad. And I said, well, I'd have to talk to my conference president and get some permission before I said yes to that. And he said, well, do that and then get back to me. So I talked to my president. He said, well, Ken, he said, you know, I'm a big believer in you being where God wants you to be. He said, we don't want you to leave, but
Wow.
if you want to interview, that's up to you.
It then.
He was a good man. And so long story short,
You flew to
flew out to Spokane, Washington.
Yeah,
Flew out there to,
wow.
and it was a 2-church district, pastoring a church that's on a boarding high school's campus, and then also another church that was kind of a small church, but about 10 minutes drive away from Eastern Washington University, which is the largest public university
Wow.
in that part
So
of
kind
Washington.
of a college campus.
Very much
church?
so. It's
Oh,
that
wow.
town literally, in the summer, it was less than
Very
half
cool.
the size it was during the school year because there's so many students there. So flew out there, and we just knew that God had led us to do that. It felt like God's call, and I told the person who was in charge of hiring pastors, I said, are you really sure you know what you're doing? Because I don't know. He said, oh, Ken, you know, we've interviewed you, we feel really good about this. And I said, well, these are two churches that, you know, they're good churches, but I'm afraid I'm going to mess things up. And he said, no, trust me, we know what we're doing. And they put me right into those churches, and it was just what God had ordered.
So this is a big transition now. You're talking to cameras, and then you're doing PR. Now all of a sudden you're talking to young people. You're talking to kids, high school age, and then college campus. What were some of the things that you found were challenges there, maybe as you were tweaking your ministry skills? What were some of the things that you found that you needed to know how to reach them?
You know what? I think that probably, this may not be a popular answer, but it's the truth. I think that probably the thing that prepared me best for ministry at those churches was television news.
Okay. Maybe you want to explain that. That's a good one.
And I think the reason is because a lot of times, I think that sometimes pastors have a really good theology base, and I think that's critical. You have to have that if you're going to be a pastor.
Right.
But I think that sometimes there can be a little missing connection between what's really happening in the community with people and the ability to communicate and understand those people.
Gotcha.
And so for me, I think working in television news really opened the door for me to understand my community better, because I'd seen a lot of what happens in a community. And while it was a different community, it's a lot the same. If there's one thing that youth and young adults have in common, it's that they want to know that you're going to love and care about them no matter what they say to you.
Good point. Yes.
And they will oftentimes do what I call the flinch factor on you. It's like when you're in grade school and somebody would pretend like they're going to punch you in the face, and they get as close to your face as they could without really punching you.
Sure.
And if you flinch, they, you know.
Right. They kind of pull back. Yes.
And that's kind of what I found to be the case with working with young adults and youth, and it's still true to this time. They'll say things and do things because they want to see if you're going to flinch.
They want a reaction, don't they?
Yeah, they want to see. Well, they want to know whether if they say something to you, are you going to treat them differently because of that? I had one young man that was a part of our Bible study group we did a Friday night Bible study for students at this public university.
Kind of a campus Bible, or
right.
Off campus, probably.
Right, exactly. And what would happen is, it was really interesting because I watched him, he did it to me, and then I watched him to do it to other speakers that I brought in, but he had this really off-color question that he always liked to ask a new person. And I can't even, it's so off-color I can't even say it to you here on the air, but it's this off-color question that he asked. And he asked me this question. And I just looked at him, I said, well, there must be a really good reason why you're asking that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Okay.
And it took him back, because I think he'd expected me to get all upset or whatever.
Or really react to it.
Really react in some way, and I didn't. And because it didn't. I mean, I'd heard far worse in the newsroom, so he wasn't going to get me on that. But what was interesting is, over time, I wound up marrying that young man. I dedicated his child. He's a good young man. He just wanted to know that there was a pastor there that he could say whatever he wanted to, and that he was going to be loved and cared about. He was going to get a straight answer from me. I didn't just say what he wanted me to say or give him answers that he liked. But he wanted to know that no matter what I said, I wasn't going to flinch. Right. I wasn't going to back away from him.
He kind of wanted to know whether he could trust you, I think.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that's one of the underlying things. Can I trust you
Absolutely.
with who I am? Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a great observation. Yes. That's great.
So to me, that's one of the things.
Yeah, what a neat experience there. So that's in Spokane. Now, you're there, how many years were you there, Pastor?
I pastored for 5 years.
Okay, 5 years. And then God kind of came knocking at your door again, and he just took you a little bit different direction, something really big now, something close to my heart, because I actually have been where you're at, sitting in some of the role that you are in. And so tell us about that. What was the call that came next?
It was really interesting. What happened was the Upper Columbia Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, which I was a part of.
In Washington State.
In Washington State,
sure.
correct. they hired a new youth director. And the youth directors within the Seventh-day Adventist Church are generally in charge of working with the churches within a certain region. They kind of act as a consultant for youth.
Right.
They also provide programming for all the churches to come together for. They run a summer camp. Generally speaking, they'll run a summer camp during the summers.
Okay.
And they lead out with the different youth organizations that the Seventh-day Adventist Church has. Well, Upper Columbia Conference got a new youth director. And so I happen to know that where this youth director had come from, the president was somebody I'd worked with in the past. And I told my wife had just gone back to work. She was just going back for the first time to be a teacher. My wife, Rochelle, is an elementary school teacher.
Yes.
And so she'd just gone back, and I said, Rochelle, I said, man, I said, if you hadn't just started working, I'd be tempted to send an email to Steve Haley, is his name. I'd send him an email and see if they already have somebody picked out for that position or whether he'd be interested in getting an application for me. And Rochelle said, Ken, send in your resume. She said, I've felt like that's the direction God's calling you for a while. She said, so send in the resume. Let's see what God does.
What a sweet wife.
Hey, I have the best wife ever. I really do.
Pretty sweet,
she's fantastic.
That's pretty sweet, yeah.
So I sent in the resume, and before I knew it, I was sitting down in front of a group of people to interview. One of those people happened to be your husband, Mike.
Yeah, I think he was there,
and
yes.
so I interviewed, and long story short, here I sit today. And I've been working here for about a year now, and I love it. To me, it just it fits the skills God's given me very well, and I have a blast doing it.
So youth and young adults, is that right? That's kind of your
youth,
umbrella?
I basically, I have responsibilities from everything from, I think, about age 6 all the way up to about 30. Yeah.
Oh, well, just a few.
Just
then.
a small.
Yeah, just a small. That's right. That's
swath
right.
of the.
And now, tell them what I'd like to really have you share is your work that you do with the summer camp program. And tell them a little bit about what the summer camp, the name of the summer camp, and where it's located. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what happens at that summer camp. So why don't you tell us first, where is that summer camp? What's the name of it?
Oh, I love talking about summer camp.
Yes.
As I mentioned earlier, most youth directors are in charge of running a summer camp,
Right.
and our program is Indian Creek Camp. It's out. It's out in Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, it is.
It's on a big lake. What lake is it on, Gail?
Center Hill Lake.
Center Hill Lake.
Center Hill Lake.
You got it.
Yep. I-40 straight east, just about. Yes.
You got it. And it's called Indian Creek Camp. It is. I've worked at other camps.
Okay.
And
so you've had some experience around the.
I've had some experience,
North
and
America.
it is just a fantastic camp. It really is.
Okay,
I really
all right.
totally enjoy working there, and the group that works there is just a fantastic group of people. And but it runs for 7 weeks during the summer.
Okay, that's what we would like to know. Yeah. So it starts about what? When is your starting date?
This summer is June 9.
June 9.
Basically, our camps start at age 7.
Okay.
And they run all the way up to age 17.
Okay. And if I were to send my child there, tell me what happens during the week. You feed them, right? I'm sure you feed them.
We have an excellent chef. Really excellent chef.
Okay.
But I think the one thing I'd say, and just to backtrack a little bit for me, Gail, is that I think summer camp is something that every child should attend, whether it's Indian Creek Camp or whether it's anywhere else. I just think that summer camp is a really important part of kids growing up. I think it puts them in contact with adult mentors in a way that's just really rare. School is important, and you have a teacher at school who is an awesome mentor, but putting them in a summer camp, oftentimes their counselor is somebody who's in their early 20s, and those kids just absolutely look up to those people. And when you take the time to hire the right people, like we do at Indian Creek Camp, and I'm sure most camps do,
yes, sure,
they come into contact with an adult that is going to care about them. I was a summer camp counselor, and there are campers to this day who still know who I am.
Really?
Because you make a difference in their life. They live with you for a week. You talk to them about your experiences in life. You have this chance to really connect. And I just think summer camp is something every child should do. And you know, the summer camp industry is so well regulated.
Yes, there is a regulating body,
Yeah,
isn't there?
absolutely.
Yes, so
And
that's good
you know,
to know. Yes.
one of the things that all of us do is, you know, we put all the people through background checks. We reference them extensively. And so you can feel really safe sending your child there. You can feel
You have a week of training too, don't
oh,
you,
absolutely.
before camp
all
even
of
starts?
all the
So
staff are
yes.
CPR certified, first aid
Yes.
certified.
First
I'll tell
aid,
you what,
all that.
our safety is so rigorous that we have a lake, a gorgeous lake. You mentioned
Yes,
Center Hill Lake.
Hill Lake, yes.
And it's, we won't actually, because of safety regulations, we actually require that the campers have to have a life jacket on to be in the, we have lifeguards there, but they still have to wear a life jacket anytime they're in the lake or out on our dock, because we care about the safety. And
Sure.
you know, most camps that I'm aware of follow those kind of standards very rigorously, because I think that one of the things that we understand in the camping profession is that there are people who are trusting us with their most precious possession. And we want to do everything that we can to ensure the safety of what's been entrusted to us.
Sure.
And so
Sure.
I tell people all the time, I have two children. I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. And I do not hire anybody. I would not leave my children in their care. In fact, I actually tell my boys director and my girls director, I say, put them in whichever cabin you want, because there's not a counselor that I hired that I wouldn't want my child with.
Wow.
And
That's really good.
because why would I want to put your child with somebody I want my child with? And I think that probably as a father of a 7- and 9-year-old, and I'm a pretty protective dad, as a father, I know what parents must feel like when they drop their children off.
Sure.
There's
and
got
leave
to be
them in the hands of other people.
Absolutely. It's got to be a little. It's got to be scary. And so we want to make sure that we do everything we can to provide that kind of safety.
That's wonderful. Now, give us just a quick rundown, though. What are the things the kids get to do out there at Indian Creek Camp? Let us know. You know.
Yeah.
Do they just walk around all day? No, I don't.
Yeah,
think so.
just walk in circles.
Yeah, really.
No, ask any kid that's been to Indian Creek Camp, and they'll let you know that they have had the time of their life. We have boats, so they can water ski. They can. We have wakeboarding. There's a big swimming pool, high dive, low dive, archery, horses. We just installed a brand new disc golf course, 18-hole disc golf course.
How fun.
It's awesome.
Yes,
It's really nice.
yes.
We put that in. We have BMX bikes. We have mountain bikes.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. We have an amazing arts program. We have our own pottery. We can make our own pottery there, and so the kids can make the pottery. They can paint the pottery. We have crafts. Do model rocketry. I have yet to meet a child that lacked for things to do while they were with us.
I think you keep them pretty busy, it
we
sounds
do.
like.
We have programming that we do in the evenings for the kids, our camp staff.
yes.
Besides having to know how to lifeguard, they have to be a little bit of actors and actresses, so they have to put on these little crazy camp skits. And I think probably the kids' favorite thing of the whole week, though, is the singing. They love the singing. And so, yeah, it's just one of their favorite things. So.
Well, you know, this has been very informative. If I was a parent and I was, you know, kind of wondering, should I send my child to camp or not? Tell me, I know you've shared a little bit about it, but what are some of the skills? What are the things that they may take back with them and bring back home to face some of the things that teenagers and children face today? Because let's face it, it is kind of a tough world to live in. And so what are some of the challenges that you help them face if they come to camp? What would you help them with?
I think one of the really positive things about summer camp is that it puts them into contact with their peers in a very well defined boundaries. You know, our counselors and staff are on site to kind of help those relationships as they grow.
Sure.
You know, we're very careful to watch for bullying and to kind of help kids learn how to appropriately deal with their relationships. And we see so many kids come out of their shell, to speak, if you will. That they'll come, they're really quiet, and by the end of the week they've made all these new friends, and they've learned that they can go into a new environment, they can meet people, and they can walk away having friends. For our camp is a Christian camp, and so I think for me,
Okay.
The biggest thing
That's
is
right.
that they actually walk away knowing Jesus better when they come to our camp,
Amen.
and
I
that they
like that.
deepen that relationship with Him. We really focus a lot on teaching them how to have their own devotional life, how
Great.
to really come in contact with Jesus and know Him as their own personal Savior. We're a Seventh-day Adventist camp, but we have a lot of children who come that aren't Seventh-day Adventists, and we're great with that. We love having them there, and the things that we teach them are things that I think any Christian church would be delighted to have their child come home understanding about.
Right, right. And that happens sometimes, like you mentioned, in the programming and even with the counselors. The counselors, don't they have worship with the kids?
I think the counselors is the primary
Yes.
place where it happens
Yes.
because they spend so much time with that counselor during the week. And I can think of last summer so many times where I'd have a counselor come up to me and say, in the morning, he'd say, or she would say, I was up last night and talked to camper X, and they're going through this struggle at home. Mom and Dad are going through a divorce, and I prayed with them.
Boy.
I shared with them that I've been through that and how I dealt with it, and that's just something I think that you can't put a price tag on,
No.
that kind of
No.
experience.
No,
And
you can't.
it's just amazing to me how God matches campers up with counselors.
Yes.
That He just matches them with the right person for that particular week.
Yep. Yep. Well, I have to tell you, this has been a wonderful chat that we've had today, and I really hope that our viewers will take seriously maybe sending your children to summer camp. It is a great experience, and it can change your child's outlook on a lot of different things, and maybe for life. Their attitudes, I know when we were there, I'm thinking of some kids that we know just totally changed. Is there anything else you'd like to say to our viewers, maybe just as parting words to them and counsel maybe about their kids?
Sure. If I were to say anything, spend time with your kids. That would be the biggest piece of advice I have. We live in a generation that's somewhat orphaned. They're lacking role models in their life. If you have kids, spend some time with them. If you don't have kids, mentor a kid.
Yeah.
They need your time, they need your love, and
Yep.
you'll never regret the time that you invest in a child or a young
That's right.
person.
Ken, it has been so good to have you here today, and I have enjoyed our chat and learning about summer camp and what kids do there, and we are so glad that you have been with us, and I hope that you have learned some things today too. So thank you, and I hope you'll join us again. Thanks.